Never give up. You're about to listen to the Darla Z, live from the Hollywood Room on the Bootleggers Music Group Radio. Award-winning singer-songwriter Darla Z brings you her special guests who share intimate stories about their lives, how they became successful in their chosen fields, how they learned from their mistakes, and how we can all make a positive difference in the lives of others. Welcome to Live from the Hollywood Room with your host, Darla Z.
Hi, this is Darla Z, and I'm talking to you live from the Hollywood Room, and I am talking to a remarkable woman. And let me tell you, just first off, how it had happened. A couple weeks ago, I was scrolling. I'm always looking for good quality entertainment, and I don't ever watch anything scary or anything like that. So I'm looking for a movie, and I come across one starring Jennifer Gardner. And it's called Miracles from Heaven. And I start watching it and I am riveted for the next 2.5 hours. I cry 3 times. I can't wait. I walk away to go, wherever, something to drink or something like that, come back. I can't wait for it to finish. And so then after I got through the end of the movie, then I needed to find out more. And I wanted to find out, because it said it was a true story. So then I start researching and I come across your name, and you are the one who wrote this story. And this is her book, Miracles from Heaven. And Christy Beam is her name. And I am just honored to have you on this show. So welcome to Darla Z Live from Hollywood Room.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you. So I'm going to kick right off with how much your book meant to me, because the movie was fabulous, and of course I'm a big Jennifer Gardner fan, but the book itself, it had so much wisdom in it, and I loved your spiritualness in it. So now I think, it's kind of dumb to say what inspired it because it's a true story, but why don't you tell me how it came about that you wrote this book?
That in itself is actually a pretty amazing story. So I, when Annabelle was healed and we were all just kind of processing, and I had a lot of healing that I feel like I needed to go through. And so I felt like God was telling me that I needed to write a book. And I was just like, no, God, that's crazy. I don't do those things. I don't know what you're talking about. And so I kept saying, no, that's weird. That's silly. I don't know why I'm thinking about those things. And then I met up with a friend from high school that I hadn't seen in, 15 years or so. And we met for lunch, sat down, and the first words out of her mouth were, God has laid it on my heart. You need to write a book about Annabelle's journey. And I went, what? I hadn't told anyone that I had been feeling led to write a book. So wow. I just kind of like, I don't know, and dismissed it. So then fast forward maybe 6 more weeks, we met again for lunch, and she sat down and she said, have you started? And I said, no, I'm not planning on doing that. And she said, well, it's not a matter of time. It's a matter of, if. No, it's a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When are you going to get started? Because God wants you to write this story. And I was like, ooh, okay, I'm feeling really convicted now because I totally had dismissed it. So sat down, and it just poured out of me, just for days and nights, just poured out. And when I had finished, I thought, God, that was so good because it was so cathartic. And that's exactly what I needed for so much healing. And thank you. And God just said, good, I'm glad you got that out of that, but sit down and be quiet because I have a lot of work to do now. And they just went crazy. Yeah, after that, it was crazy.
I I'm a writer. I've written some children's books, 4 children's books, cat detectives. Um,
Nice.
you like animals. You're a dog person, though.
Oh,
Big
yes.
time. But I really liked how it went back and forth in the book. Was that how you wrote it? I know you're a school
Mhm,
teacher, so you
mhm,
probably did a lot of writing in your past as in your profession, but because I thought that was really cool the way it was laid
mhm,
out. And that
mhm,
was deliberate.
yes. Yes. Because I kept finding myself um, in both places. You know, you would find yourself here, but then you're also reflecting on it. Well, I got here because we were here. And so
Yeah.
I just kept using them to build off of each other.
Yeah, that was really neat, and that's unusual. It's not common in a book like that. The movie wasn't like that. It went, just chronological, but I really thought that was cool. So now I think that we need to get into what happened to Annabelle and and that story because that is remarkable and what a miracle
Yeah,
and, and
total.
beautiful.
Yes. So cool.
Okay, you have three, you're a mother of 3 daughters, and
Yes.
she was your middle child, right?
Yes. Yes.
So you
Yeah.
had Abigail, Annabelle, but you could call Abby Anna, and then you had an Adeline. Um,
Yes.
so you had the 3 girls, and about age 4, Annabelle started having symptoms with her stomach, right?
hmm Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She started having just kind of what we thought were tummy troubles. Went to the doctor numerous times, and her pediatrician, amazing man. After many visits, he finally said, "You know what? I think we probably need to get a specialist involved." So we went to a pediatric gastroenterology specialist who wasn't a lot of help, but ran a lot of tests and came up with a lot of random diagnoses that were inaccurate. And then
Yeah.
we had a really terrible event happen. They were doing a bowel prep on her, and basically the weight of the bowel prep weighted off her intestines, and it caused the complete obstruction. And
Yeah.
so she went through a lot of turmoil during that because
Yeah.
the doctor wouldn't listen to me that she was completely obstructed, and she was literally dying. And so got her to the hospital the third time during that 3 or 4 day sequence, and I kind of had to lose my mind a little bit to get them to listen to me that she didn't just need Zofran and send her home, Zofran and send her home. And so they finally ran some tests and realized that she was very, very close to death or ill. And so they
Yeah.
rushed her in and did the emergency surgery and released the obstruction. But 9 days later, she re-obstructed. And then
Mhm.
21 days later, we went home from the hospital and began this totally new, crazy life.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming from my father-in-law is a world famous physician.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got some doctors in my family, but you got good ones, and just like lawyers or whatever else, you've got bad ones. And that they accused you of the Manchurian syndrome was just
Yeah.
that didn't wasn't in the movie. And I thought,
Mm-mm.
and then even CPS, I mean, just
Oh,
crazy, crazy.
yeah.
And I don't know how you handled that because you're trying to, help your daughter uh and you've got these nut jobs that are not
Yeah.
listening, you know.
Mm-mm.
Now, I did love the statement that you made that yes, you were dealing with those situations with some doctors. You had some fabulous doctors, just
Oh,
like my father-in-law was fabulous. So, but
oh my
you
goodness.
said in every bad doctor that you had 10 people times 10
Mm-hmm.
people, your people at your church or
Mm.
your family or your loved ones and friends that were helping you through it. And I thought that was a really nice way to look at it, not looking at the negative, because you're just going to get that in every walk of life. You're going to have
Yeah.
bad and you're going to have good. But
Yeah.
but you looked at that with a rosy picture, and I thought that was nice, because that had to have been awful when they
Oh.
accused you of those things.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. And I don't know if it hadn't been for our community, just the strength of friendships and family and church and literally community. I don't know how you get through something like that without that and the ability to shift your focus to the good things that are happening, the good people who
Mhm.
are by you, while you walk that journey. I don't really know how you do that if you don't have that in your life.
Yeah, well, I don't know how you get through any turmoil without God.
Yeah,
I don't,
amen.
you
Yeah.
know, so I mean, we're on the same page there. But and then I read about, and I don't know that we'll get into it right now, but the times that you suffered from depression, which I can
Mhm.
understand why, when you're dealing with a little baby, a little beautiful little baby
Yeah.
that you want to help, and you can't get help. And
Mm-mm.
so gosh. But you know what my husband told me last night? He told me that he saw an interview with Paul McCartney recently, and he said that Paul was talking about how he had depression, and you were talking
Mm.
Paul McCartney when he was the
Mm.
hottest band as the Beatles. And so Bill was like, how can someone be depressed when you're so great? And then he told a story about his mom, and she had died 10 years earlier.
Mm.
And he was in this funk of depression. And I believe you described yours as a funk as well.
Yeah.
And so he said that he had a dream, and he dreamed his mom came to him, 10 years after she died. And she said, you've just got to let it be.
Mm.
So he got up the next
Wow.
day and wrote that song. So I am proud of you. I know you've had miscarriages, which you shared in your book. So I'm not telling something that you didn't tell.
No.
Um,
Yeah.
but I thought it was beautiful that your daughter, Annabelle, and we haven't gotten to the tree, we haven't gotten to that story, but when she went to heaven, she thought she saw somebody that looked
Mhm.
like her. And
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
that maybe the child that you lost in a miscarriage?
Yeah, we wonder because I had two different miscarriages. One was just a blighted ovum,
Right.
which isn't really necessarily a fetus. But then one, we carried till 11 weeks and then miscarried. And,
Yeah.
you know, we wonder if that isn't that sweet little soul that Annabelle saw in heaven.
Yeah. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, I last week I had a domestic violence woman, and now I've got you today, and I hope I can get through without crying. What a lightweight. Okay.
No, it's heavy
Okay,
stuff.
so it really is. And when you're talking about faith and getting through awful times and becoming persevering, it is something that affects you. So now I really want to get back to our story. So
Okay.
Annabelle, or the true life story. So Annabelle was suffering from all this stuff, getting a hard time getting diagnosed. You were traveling. You ended up getting a specialist in Boston, and
Yes.
Dr. Nurko, in the movie, he was delightful, and that was
Oh,
how you described him in the book.
uh, we love Dr. Nurko. We are still close to Dr. Nurko. He loves Annabelle. She loves him. He is genuinely one of the most amazing physicians I've ever had an opportunity to work with. And
Oh,
it's not
that's
because he
wonderful.
healed Annabelle, it's because he gave her hope. And the other doctors literally told me this is her life. This is what she's going to live with. This is what's going to happen. You need to accept it, Mom, and stop fighting it. And I just said, no, I will not accept this is going to be her life. I just can't. Yeah. When we went to Dr. Nurko, he said, I will do everything I can to help you have the best quality of life you can have. And that's all we wanted.
Yeah.
And he genuinely did that. And he did it happy, and he did it just, he's just an amazing man.
Well, and I think it was in your book as well, but the recap at the end of the movie where they talked about how you felt like, from your perspective in the movie, you had all these angels going through as you went through these 6 years of hell, basically, with Annabelle. And you had all these angels come into your life that blessed you. And, you know, Dr. Nurko sounds like he was one of those angels, and, you know.
Yeah, complete and total blessing. I mean, just, I don't know what we'd have done without him. And even the events that took place that led us to him was because the original doctor we had at the hospital in Fort Worth, when things went south with him, we ended up going to Dallas Children's Hospital. And it was there that we met a GI specialist who ran tests on her and determined what was going on with the pseudo-obstruction motility disorder. Well, then that doctor had his partner kind of work with Annabelle. And she told me, if this was my little girl, I would have her in the arms of Dr. Samuel Nurko. I never knew he existed before that day. But because that woman took the time to say that to me, and then I said, well, she said, he's in Boston. You would have to fly there for treatment. How am I going to make that happen? What do I do? She said, I happen to know him. Let me make some phone calls. So she made some phone calls and I made some phone calls, and it did take us 6 weeks to get in to see him. But then once we did get in and established a relationship with him, it was just amazing. So even that setup, you know, just the fact that that doctor cared enough at that moment to say, you know, there is hope in another passage, you know.
Well, and that I don't know why God had you go through, and Annabelle in particular, because of all the pain she endured those 6 years, you know. But he was also the catalyst to get you to the point, to the tree of what, you know, the miracle that happened there. And so maybe all that stuff that happened in between had to happen to get to that point. Is the tree still there?
So God took care of that too. The answer is yes and no. We had, right after everything happened in the pub date in New York, Annabelle and I were doing the media, and Kevin called and said the next day and said,
Kevin's your husband?
Yes, Kevin's my husband. And he said, you're not going to believe this, but we had like a random windstorm come through. And so let me back up. When it all happened, he took a chainsaw out there with the intention of cutting it down so that nothing like that could ever happen again. But then he got there, and it is a monster tree. It was huge. And so physically, he couldn't cut that down alone. And he sat out there and spent a lot of time with it. And then just with a peaceful heart, he carved a 6-foot cross in it with a chainsaw and walked away. Then we started having concerns about people wanting to, you know, try to chunk their loved ones down it. And visit it, and, you know. So we were kind of
I can understand that. Mm-hmm.
So the day that this happened, a strong windstorm blew through. And the craziest thing, I tell you, God snapped the tree in half. So from the top of the cross down, the tree was still standing. And from the top of the cross, it snapped at the top of the cross over. So the cross below was still standing of the tree for the longest time. It was just beautiful, just this beautiful broken tree with the cross down, was what was still standing. And then now, because it was a hollowed out cottonwood tree, it was a dead inside tree. It has now since kind of crumbled and fallen away.
So now with the tree, before it went through that transformation, what I loved in the movie, and it wasn't, I didn't realize it until I watched it a second time with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
But they did a lot of shots with the tree, and I think that it was deliberate by the director to show the strength of the tree. Did you get that? Mm-hmm. That it was always shown in shots, and it was like the focal point, but you don't really even know why it's important until the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a strong pillar of I guess a strong pillar, and not of hope, because what happened inside. So now, so Annabella's going through all this stuff. You're going to Boston. The expenses are enormous, and you're traveling. And Kevin said, you guys had just started a veterinary, practice. And I love animals, so I think that's wonderful. And he's a veterinarian, and I love animals. But so you go through all that. You've got all these dilemmas going on in your life, and Annabelle just keeps on getting sicker and sicker.
Mm-hmm.
And so her little the disorder, it's, what's it called?
So she actually ended up having two: pseudo obstruction motility disorder, which just means, and then antral hypomotility disorder, which just means the stomach, the top and the bottom of the stomach didn't work. It didn't have the peristalsis to move food through and out synchronically. So when she ate stuff, it just stayed stagnant, and it didn't, crunch it up and move it out into the colon and out of the body. So it stayed stagnant. Then when it did leave the stomach, it would stay stagnant in the colon. And then it just took forever to leave the body. It's just a devastating disease. People, suffer.
There's no cure. With it.
There is no cure. Right. She's the only person on record to have medically been healed from those two disorders.
That is amazing. But we all know why she was healed.
Yeah.
And so that's what caused the obstructions that she would have to have, and why she'd always have to have the surgeries, and the lactose intolerant. Oh, wow. that was sure the cure. Don't eat pizza.
Yeah. Oh, mercy. It was just, and I mean, it was red dye. It was just one silly, it was because she was eating too fast, swallowing too much air. I mean, the nonsense went on and on,
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So we're now in Boston, and we're going through all the treatments and things like that. And there was in both your book and in the movie, she'd had it. She wanted to die.
Yeah.
And and so there she is at that age, wanting to go see Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So that was amazing. that I mean, and you see it on the St. Jude commercials, and you see these children that are that age that are so strong and so wise when they're facing death, that they're so much more mature than us,
Yeah.
And so for her to want that, not that she's, and she even said, you said later in the book, she didn't want to commit suicide. She just wanted it to end, all the pain to end, and be with Jesus.
Yeah, 100%. And was just so adamant about it. She just said, Mommy, I want to die and go to heaven and be with Jesus where there's no more pain.
And she was about 8 or 7 at this time?
So she was 9 when she said that, because that was actually right before we were in Boston, and she said that, then we got home, and then literally days later, a couple, 3 days later after we got home is when she fell in the tree from that Boston trip.
That was New Year's Eve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
In fact, I think you took her home because you wanted to have her have some sense of normalcy with the holidays.
Yes.
And I love Christmas too, by the way. I know you like
Yes.
it.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So does my
Love it.
mom. We all love
No.
Christmas. But so I knew you wanted to take her home, and for a little child, that is that is a joy in the midst of all that awfulness. So
Oh,
you went
yes.
ahead and took her from Boston, even though they said she probably ought to stay, which
Yeah.
is another catalyst to the miracle.
Hmm.
Um, and then she's out there at your home in Texas, and she decides to go, even though she doesn't feel good, she goes with her sisters to go climb her favorite tree.
Yes. So it was actually a tree that Abigail, the oldest, Abby, had found. And they are all three. I don't know that Adeline would be considered a tomboy, but Abby and Anna are definitely have always kind of been tomboys and always loved to climb trees and, do all the tomboy things. And Adeline was always so much younger, she'd tag along and play with them. But Abby had discovered, in her inquisitive ways that Abby has, she'd found this tree, and she had herself climbed up 30 feet in the air into this
Ah.
tree without me knowing. And there was a bird's nest I later found, and it had babies in it and the mama. And so that's how Abby convinced Annabelle to get off the couch that day and go with her and climb the tree because
To go see the
it,
babies.
to go see the babies. Because and it broke Abby's at little Abby is just a little mama. She always has been. And it broke her heart for us to be gone. Because then Kev would be working and the other two would be with dear friends or family. And they would
Yeah.
kind of be the two of them. And so then they would miss Annabelle greatly. So when they did have time with Anna, they would do what they can to get quality time with her. So Abby convinced Anna that day to go out and come look at the tree. And they did. She did. She went and looked in
So they
that tree.
climbed 30 feet high, 3 stories. And then
Yes,
what
30 feet in
happened?
the air. They were sitting on the branch, this branch that stretched out from the tree, um, and where the branch. So imagine the tree goes straight up, and then there's a branch that kind of broke off from the tree. Well, where the branch had broken off, there was kind of an entrance or a nook into the tree. Well, they're sitting on that branch that was outstretched that had kind of fallen a little bit. And then all of a sudden, that branch began to give way. And Abigail, in her quick thinking, so smart, said, Annabelle, you get your weight off the branch, you go inside that little nook, and I will come down and then help you down because she was so weak and fragile. She couldn't do it by herself.
No.
And so
Yeah.
Annabelle did. Annabelle went inside that little nook thinking it never occurred to them or anyone that it was an entrance. We just assumed it was like a little hollow holding point. Well, Anna did. She went inside that nook and then fell 30 feet head first, hit her head 3 times on the way down, and then ended up on the base of her skull. I mean, on top of her skull at the base of that hollowed out cottonwood tree. Yeah.
Okay. So that right there could have, I mean, that there's so many injuries that
Oh,
could have happened from that, but
yes,
and certainly broken bones and a concussion would be the best scenario.
absolutely.
Spine paralysis. I mean, there's just a zillion things that could have happened. And yet, uh, what happened next?
Well, she was entombed in that tree for about 4 or 5 hours. And Abby came and got me, and I went out there, and just the mental comprehension of she's inside the tree. It took a minute because I kept
Yeah.
looking up in the tree, and I was like, "Where is Annabelle?" And they're like, "In the
Yeah.
tree," and it took a bit. So eventually, Kevin gets home. 911 services get there. There's a life flight helicopter on the ground, and they get her. They get ladders suspended on each side of the tree. And, she wasn't responding. We weren't sure she was alive. And, the craziest thing, one of the firefighters that was up there, his name was Mike Hill, and he just stayed up at the top of the tree with her, yelling down to her and calling her. And finally she responded, and praise God, we knew she was alive. The helicopter paramedic doctor kept telling me, Mom, we've never had anyone fall 30 feet and not suffer paralysis or broken bones. You need to be prepared for what we're looking at when we get her out. We're going to take her immediately. We're going to assess her on the helicopter. Just all this stuff is coming at you. You're like, oh my. They couldn't cut the tree down because it would have crumbled in on her. Yeah. And they couldn't send a man down after her because the hole was too small. Yeah. So the only thing that could happen happened. And Annabelle, by the grace of God, came to. And not only did she come to, she was so calm and eerily peaceful that the firefighters could not understand. Like it just blew them away. And they rigged up a pulley system and lowered it down to her and talked her into how to get herself into this pulley system, where they pulled her up and out of the tree and rescued her that way.
5 hours in a dark, muddy, scary place. This 9-year-old girl stays calm. Yes. You don't hear her screaming on the outside, which you would have. She stays calm. So how did she stay calm? I mean, I know the answer, but no one else knows.
So literally the next day after the chaotic events take place, we're driving down the road and she just turns to me and she said, it's just totally quiet in the truck. We're all 5 in it. And she says, Mommy, I went to heaven when I was in that tree. And I just kind of looked at her and she said, and I sat on Jesus's lap. And I told him I wanted to stay, but he told me I couldn't. They had plans for me on earth that I could not fulfill in heaven. And that when I got back, that the firefighters would get me out and there would be nothing wrong with me. And in my short-sightedness, I thought she meant from the fall, because there was nothing wrong with her from the fall. Yeah. But that's not what she meant. That's not what God meant. And ultimately, over time, we realized that she was completely healed. She went from 10 medications given every 2 to 4 hours throughout the day to 0 GI medications. Yeah. And just working fully. Her system completely works totally on its own. It does not need any medication to make it work or any of that anymore. She's good. She's healed.
Well, so they should have put in the movie, because the scene of the guardian angel in the tree with her, that would have been cool. Yeah. But so Annabelle tells that is how she saw the pulley coming down. Yeah. And so she could grab it because the angel lit it up for her. Yeah. And when she was in heaven, in your book, you said that Jesus told her that he was going to send her back with a guardian angel. So, and that was how she was able to see. I mean, it had to have been just pitch black.
Oh, it was. It was 30 feet in the bottom of this tree. I mean, she could see nothing, hear nothing, really. I mean, they were yelling down to her, but still it was just total damp, muddy darkness. Just, I cannot imagine how frightening that would be, but yet totally unafraid.
Yeah. Mm-mm. And then I think Kevin was telling you later on, he was recounting, I mean, there could have been bugs, there could have been scorpions. You're like, no, don't talk to me about that.
Snakes, rabid raccoons. I'm like, yeah.
So it's better not to think of that, because what instead there was glory and beauty and a visit to heaven. Now, I personally know of a person that had a similar experience and went to heaven with lot of blood loss and
Mm.
felt like they were looking for someone that, that they knew that was dead, and then zoom, came back, you
Wow.
know. And when you described how she said that she heard the voice while she was still away, that was how this person described to me, um,
Wow.
that they heard someone calling, and zoom, they come
Yeah.
back. So
Wow.
now that was exactly like this person that I know very well said. So
Mm.
um, so now I think I saw on your social media page that your oldest is in law school.
Yes. She's
Wow.
amazing. She's in her third year, so her last year, her final year, and
Yeah.
killing it, doing amazing.
So tell me what how the other two girls are doing.
Um, so Annabelle is in her senior year at Hardin Simmons in university, and
Wow.
she is studying psychology and sociology because she wants to be a child life specialist.
So that
And a
didn't
child,
change because she said she
no,
wanted to do that after Danny, her relationship with Danny. And so
she
she
still
stayed with
does.
that.
She still does. She has a heart to
Oh,
be what Danny
cool.
was for her to other children. And she's good. She's so good. She got to do an internship at Cook Children's this summer, and
Yeah.
they loved her. She was just so good. She's
Oh.
born for it.
So she's going to be, well, obviously, and she's going to be blessing all those little children's lives.
Oh,
And, it
yeah,
carries forward,
it does. Yeah,
from what
it does.
Danny,
It does.
how's that like?
She graduated not this last May, but the May before, and she's doing really, really great. She is very much our little fashionista, kind of always has been. So she is working full time in a boutique right now and learning the ins and outs of the trade because she herself is thinking she wants to own her own boutique one day,
Oh,
or
wow.
do real estate. She hasn't decided, but probably own her own boutique if she continues down this path. So yeah, doing great.
So you went from having that horrible stuff that you going through to three wonderful, beautiful girls who've grown up. And now you're a speaker. You go around and talk, and then you had
Yeah.
your book turned into a movie. Now I'm curious how that happened. How did someone just call you out of the blue, or how did it work?
So Nina Madonia was my literary agent in Dallas. And
Mhm.
Nina just called me one day and she said, "Hey, Christy, I need you to come into the office. Devon Franklin from Sony Columbia Pictures, that's when Sony Columbia Pictures were still together, um, wants to talk to you about making a movie about your story." And I was like, okay. Uh, Nina knew Devon from other interactions, I guess, throughout the literary world, and so that's how it came about. And we sat down and talked about it, and his heart, for the most part, mirrored mine in the way I wanted the movie to line out. And they always take dramatic licensing and do
Yeah.
things a little different. But as Devon would tell, I would complain and complain and complain, and Devon would say, "It's not a documentary; it's a movie," which I understand. So honestly, in the end, they truly got the heartbeat of the story, and they did so good. And I couldn't have been more blessed with Jen doing my role. She is amazing. She is amazing. She is a sweet friend. So blessed by her. So yeah, just all the way around, good stuff.
Yeah, and I wondered how much input you had in it. And of course, you do have to have the creative license to make it into a movie, but it mirrors pretty closely. And well,
Mhm.
but I have to say, your book has so much. You're a really great writer. Did you realize that?
Thank you. No,
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 I mean,
no.
I have underlined some of the phrases that you wrote that I just thought were beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
So
Yes.
you're a terrific writer and prophetic, like trying to breathe water or swim through solid rock. Looked like a
Mm,
little pink butterfly in a spider web. I mean, some of the
mm,
visuals that you wrote, some guys started raising a stink about it, and Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me." I've got
mhm.
loved this by it.
I love that.
So you need to write another book.
So, yeah, I started to do that. Um, but the girls really just want to be the girls and they don't really want. So I started to write one because a lot of people were asking, what was life
Oh,
like
follow
for your
up.
family? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
during the whole media journey and the movie journey,
yeah.
and what's life like now, and what have you learned? And I started working on it, but then the girls were like, I don't really know if we want another book about us. We just kind of want to be normal and not have that. And so I respected that for sure, and just kind of laid low. And as they mature and as time goes on, if they're okay with it, I would like to write another one and kind of finish the journey with everyone. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I love that idea. And from a perspective of a children's book author, um, you have a story about the tree, you have your husband's veterinary practice with all those little animals that he saves. And I
Yes,
mean, you could branch out in the
definitely.
meantime
Yeah,
because
that's
you're a
true.
writer. You're a great writer.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I caught so many wonderful things that you'd written. When you wrote about Abigail's panic attack that she
Mm,
had, and that she felt like it was her fault, and it went
mhm,
on. And then when the media
mm,
covered it, they're like,
mhm,
"Oh, so she told her to go up in the tree," and then
mhm.
Abigail's dying, thinking, "Oh my God, they're going to think it's my fault."
Yeah.
But if not for Abigail, the miracle
Amen.
wouldn't have happened.
Amen. 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 And I
You
told her
know?
that. I told her, Abigail, you were used by God. You allowed
Yes.
God to make you the primary vessel in all this. If it wasn't for you, Annabelle would
It
still be
wouldn't have
struggling.
happened. Yeah.
Nasogastric tubes and PIC lines and
Yeah.
uh, liquid foods and liquid diet. I mean, you are the
She was
hero in
one of
this
those
story.
angels. She was one of those
Yes,
angels. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So that was cool. But I also could picture my mom one time when I was young. I'd gone to a sleepover and all these girls were around and they did a Ouija board. And
Mm.
and so, of course, then it said I was going to die. So
Oh,
then
nice.
I go home and we lived out in the country in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And
Mhm.
so then that next day, I'm just beside myself, freaked out. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. And my mom, I pictured my mom comforting me like you did with Abigail in the ambulance,
Yes.
trying to get over the panic attack. And
Hmm.
mom made me listen to hymns and sing, songs
Oh,
and
yeah.
do that to try to get over it. But when you're in a state like she
Mm.
had to have been,
Oh,
you
man.
know, because she's lived through all that stuff with Annabelle for the 4 years or six years, really
Yes.
6 years.
Yeah.
And so then I felt for her in that, but I'm so proud of her that my husband's a lawyer. So I'm very excited that she's
Yay.
gonna be she's gonna be a lawyer. And at first she wanted to be a vet, right?
Yeah, she did. She did. We figured one of them would trek after dad, but nope, none of them did.
Well, you know what? Lawyers, we need good lawyers and we need lawyers that believe in God and want to do moral things. So that's wonderful. She's going to be
Amen.
great in the profession, you know?
She is. She is. She's gonna be
So
so good.
I loved that you wrote when you said, all things are possible, that which passes all understanding, which of course comes from the Bible. But your, was it Grand Jan? Grand
Yeah.
Jan? Okay. So
Kevin's mom.
Grand
Yeah.
Jan, when you all went down to Corpus Christi, was it Corpus Christi that she was? She had her
Yeah.
condo. Okay. So you all went down there and you told the story about what Annabelle had told you.
Yeah.
And she didn't hesitate.
Nope.
Boom, she believed it right off the bat.
Absolutely.
Unwavering belief.
A
And you
hundred
and
percent.
Kevin kind of you and Kevin kind of struggled with that
We
because you
did.
couldn't believe, well, I know you'd lived for so long,
Mm,
with that, but a miracle like that is hard to accept,
yeah, it
right?
is. Yeah, because you get your hopes up that maybe it's over. Maybe it is really over. And then what if? What if it's not? And you let yourself believe, and
Then the devil
it was
starts
just,
messing with your head.
yes. Oh, mercy. Oh, mercy. I mean, I will never forget. Kevin was standing in the kitchen and I was standing in the living room, and then I just said she hasn't needed her medicine and she's eating and playing and I don't know, and he said, do you think, Christy, maybe? And I said, don't say it.
Yeah.
Don't jinx it. Don't say it. Just because she had been doing so well, just the fear that she may regress. And then it got to where we just couldn't deny it. God did what he did, and we couldn't not own it and just sing his praises and let the world know he is still a God that has good things, and he is still involved in our lives intimately in each and every one of us. So we just kind of had to own it.
Well, I mean, I know that I mean, you were given, obviously, you and Annabelle and your family were given a major gift. And I
Yes.
know that there are instances where that doesn't happen.
No.
So probably there may be a guilt factor there where you feel like, how
Oh,
come, it happened to me, but it didn't happen to
yeah.
Carrie, who's in the hospital at St. Jude's,
Yes.
dying of cancer. So how do you deal with that in your just be thankful and just don't
Mm.
question, or how do you handle it?
I just say, honestly, I don't know. I don't know why God chose us to share his story. I don't know why he chose us to reveal who he is and what he can do, to reveal that so many people around us can be the hands and feet of Jesus. I don't know, but I do know that he intimately has a relationship with each one of us, and he has a plan for every single one of us. And it doesn't mean that the plan isn't healing, but either way, there is healing, either this side of heaven or that side of heaven. There is healing and restoration. And I wish I could provide clarity of when that healing will come. Um, but I don't know, but I just know that he is still a good, perfect God with a big plan.
Well, I mean, and I love that you said that. And you went through, when you had the miscarriage, that was not easy, and you lost a child.
Yeah.
But then you had that blessing of Annabelle, which
Mm-hmm.
I believe saw
Yeah.
her in heaven, but you did lose her. So there was a
Mm-hmm.
reason for that as well. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, because in this world, there's a lot of unhappiness that is out
Mm-hmm.
there, and sometimes you wonder, I do, how come something bad is
Yeah.
allowed? And
Yeah.
my husband said he's heard one time Billy Graham. Are you too
Oh,
young to
yeah.
know who Billy Graham
No,
is?
no, no, no. Love Billy
Okay,
Graham.
so
Yes. I loved Billy Graham. Yeah.
me too. And I grew up
Yeah.
with listening to him, but someone asked him about that. How come bad things happen to beautiful people? Beautiful, I'm talking about inside their souls
Yeah.
and God loving people. And he said, I don't know. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. And that when we get to heaven, then I guess we'll understand how that happened,
Yeah.
or why it
Yeah.
happened. And so I think just being thankful and living each day and being the best you can be, which obviously you're doing and your
Mm-hmm.
girls are doing and your husband's doing. I think that's best way to think about it, and just be thankful.
Yeah. Very thankful. Very thankful.
Ah, oh, well, I can tell you this, that I am so happy to talk to you. And I'm so, so happy to hear your story and Annabelle's story. It's just so inspiring, and I love it. Part of the I guess the slogan for my show is, never quit.
Mm.
Never stop trying. And I think that Annabelle, for those 6 years, she wanted to quit, but she still kept going.
Yeah,
And you
she
as a
sure did.
mom and Kevin as a dad, you all, I mean, you said one time at the end when, she was healing or she was healed and you were trying to accept it, you got 6 hours sleep. And I'm thinking, I like 8. And you were all happy to get 6. And then I thought to myself, those 6 years, you didn't get any sleep.
No, no. Oh,
So, but, I just think that, I loved your story, and it's so inspiring, and I also encourage you to keep writing. So you and Kevin it took you some time to believe. Grand Jam came and believed it right off the bat, but it took
immediately.
you all until pretty much you went to see Dr. Nurko. Is that when the light bulb went off and you thought, oh my gosh, I can finally accept this, that she's healed?
Before we went to Dr. Nurko, so we saw Dr. Nurko in Boston, and then we saw a colleague of his in Austin. So every 4 to 6 weeks, she was going to Boston. Every 2 to 4 weeks, she was going to Austin. So I would drive her to Austin to see his colleague to check on her interim for Dr. Nurko. So we had actually gone to see the colleague in Austin, and
Oh
I
yeah.
told him, you know, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. This is what happened. I'm not giving her medication as much as I used to. I don't even know if I should be giving it to her. This is crazy. Anyway, explain the whole story. He listened to her. He looked at her and he said, I don't know, but I sure am glad she fell in that tree. She looks pretty great, and let's start pulling her off all the meds slowly. And we did. And so she was completely off all meds by the time we took her to Nurko. And more than anything, just wanted him to see her and just have his blessing to know she was where she was. But yeah, it was more when we went, I think, to Austin and saw him that it was like, okay, I can't deny where we are. I have to gratefully accept that
The
when
blessing.
you're healed, and
Yeah.
and there's no take backs. God's not a take back God. He's not like, oh, just kidding.
Yeah.
Gotcha. He's not that God.
No.
Um,
How long after from New Year's Eve, from New Year's
uh,
Eve to then, was it the end of February when you went to her, or how long did it take you to finally realize the blessing in time frame?
well, Kevin and I, honestly, when we had that conversation, when he was like, do you think? And I'm like, I kind of, yeah. I mean, it was like 2 weeks when something dramatically had changed in Annabelle. She was eating and running and playing, and she
Yeah.
wasn't laying on the couch anymore. I mean, dramatically had happened.
Yeah.
So it was like 2 weeks when we were like, okay, this is crazy. But then it was probably like the next week or 10 days after our conversation when we saw the doctor in Austin again. And
Okay.
he kind of echoed what we believed, that, I mean, physically she's sound.
Yeah.
And mentally she's sound. So
Yeah. It's been a long time now.
yeah.
Been
Oh
12,
yeah.
12 years. You wrote the book in 2012, right?
Yeah. So it happened in 2011. When I think the book came out in 2014 or 15. I can't remember. I don't remember when it was published. That's a terrible thing to admit. But it happened in 2011 when she fell in the tree, and she's 22 now. So 11 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Um, I really feel like I could talk to you about this all day. And I'm having so much fun listening to your story about Annabelle and the blessings and the miracles that you've gotten, that I'm going to have you come back with me, and we're going to cut this off and we're going to turn it into part 2. So stay tuned, everybody, because Christy's going to be back next week. I loved how you said that you and Kevin had armadillo skins, because that's a
Oh,
Texas That's a Texas statement. In fact, I'm fighting an
Oh, yes.
armadillo that is tearing up my yard right now.
Oh,
Like,
no.
get out. But I'm an animal lover, so I don't want to kill him. So,
I
but
know.
anyway, I loved that visual. As a Midwestern girl myself, that was how you felt when you were going through trying to accept the blessing. And
Mhm.
isn't that true? And so you had armadillo skins because you were a hard shell to crack.
Yeah,
Grand
we were.
Grand Jan went, first did it right off the bat, but it was hard, and I can understand why. Because that's
Yeah.
a hard thing to accept. Miracles are hard to accept unless you're the person who got the miracle, which is
Yeah.
Anna, and she had no problem.
Yeah.
I mean, she knows she
No.
got it.
Yeah, she
But
never
it's
looked
the
back.
people around you that either you have to convince or you don't want to convince or have to be convinced. And so I thought that was a cool visual that you said.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how we felt.
So Christy, I just want to tell you again how much it's been an honor for me to have you on this show. Your story, Annabelle's story, your family's story is so inspiring. And God bless you all. And good luck to your girls in their endeavors. I know they're going to be wonderful blessings to anybody that they come across in their chosen professions. And so thank you. Thank you for coming on this show.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed visiting with you about our journey, our crazy, amazing journey.
Yay. Crazy, amazing journey is right. So thank you.
You have been listening to Darla Z, live from the Hollywood Room on the Bootleggers Music Group Radio. Be sure to check out all our shows and download our app at www.bootleggersmusicgroup.com. The Bootleggers Music Group is dedicated to bringing you uplifting, educational, and inspiring shows for the love of God, one tune, and one show at a time. Be sure to visit Darla Z at www.darlaz.com to learn more about your award-winning host. Thanks for listening to or watching the Bootleggers Music Group Radio. Executive producer, Paul E. Jones.